Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. My name is Mo, and welcome to the post-match live analysis where we analyze Barcelona matches as soon as they are over. Today, we are analyzing the humiliating, disastrous, horrendous, embarrassing thrashing that Atletico Madrid just handed us, beating Barcelona 4-0 in the first leg of the semifinals of the Copa del Rey at their home stadium. And as the title indicates, this was a very much needed thrashing. I think this team needed this thrashing. Now, why do I say that? I've been saying this for quite some time now. If you watch any of my post-match analysis videos, I've been saying this for quite some time. And I saw this coming from a mile ahead, 10 miles ahead, a million miles ahead. But I've been saying the same thing over and over again after every match that Barcelona has played. And that is that this team is getting used to winning matches by playing 60, maybe 70% intensity. And so far, it had worked, right? Because we've mostly played against weaker teams. Albacete, Elche, Mallorca, Real Madrid. Mostly we've been playing against much weaker teams. So going 60-70% of intensity, it was working. But then when we drew Atletico Madrid, I said, this is good because we have the Champions League knockout matches coming up. And we need to play against big teams so we can measure ourselves, so we can calibrate where we are. Another thing that I've been saying time and time again in my post-match live videos analysis is that I'm getting tired of the comebacks. I'm getting tired of this team throwing away the first half, coming out asleep at the wheel, letting the other team score, and then mounting a comeback in the second half. And I said, don't get me wrong, I love comebacks. Who doesn't? Comebacks are exciting, but they're exciting when they happen every now and then. When you're doing it every match, it's no longer exciting, it's concerning. Because now you're like, okay, why can't we just start the match winning? Why do you keep throwing away the first half? Because if you do that, you're playing with fire, and that fire eventually is going to catch up to you. Because there's a reason why there are two halves. There's a reason why there are 90 minutes in a match. And if you're already throwing away half of that, you're limiting yourself to only 45 minutes to pull a victory. And sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you need the full 90 minutes to get a victory. And well, lo and behold, the two things I've been complaining about, one, that the team is constantly playing 60-70% intensity, and two, that the team is constantly throwing away the first half, well, they both culminated in today's match. And today was a reality check for these players. Today was a very much needed reality check for these players. Today was a very much needed wake-up call for these players. Today was a very much needed slap in the face to these players to say, wake the fuck up. If you want to be a serious contender in the Champions League, if you want to be a team that's respected in Europe, if you want to be a team that's taken seriously in Europe, you cannot play matches 60-70% intensity. You cannot start the first half asleep at the wheel and throw away 45 minutes, because that's not going to fly when you play against bigger clubs. It might fly against teams like Albacete and Elche and Mallorca and Girona and all those teams. It's not going to work against bigger teams. It might work against Real Madrid because they're a small third-tier club, but it's not going to work against bigger clubs. So I'm very glad that this happened today. I think this was a very much needed wake-up call, a very much needed thrashing for this team, because they need to realize you can't go about playing like that and expect to win important things. So I truly, truly hope that these players learned their lesson. Because just because you wear Barcelona's shirt on your back, it doesn't mean that the other teams are just going to automatically fear you and say, oh no, I don't know what to do. You earn respect. You earn the fear and admiration of other teams by playing like a team that deserve respect, admiration, and fear. But when you throw away that in first halves of every match you play, when you play at 60, 70% intensity, there's no reason why teams are going to admire you, fear you, or respect you. And they're going to come at you and they will win like we saw today. Because this shit does not fly against bigger clubs. It might fly against smaller clubs, does not fly against bigger clubs. And that's exactly what happened today. Because today, Barcelona were absolutely abysmal in every shape and form. At the 50, not even 50, maybe like the 10th minute, but let's not talk this early. At the 30th minute, every goal you watch, besides the first one was a total bluff or total fluke. 4, 5 players who wouldn't even bother to track back and help with the defense. And I know people are going to blame the defense because it's easy to blame the defense. But go back and watch every goal. Dani Olmo walking around like we're up 5-0. Lamine Yamal losing balls in dangerous areas. Frankie de Jong struggling continuously in the midfield. Ferran Torres, non-existent the whole match. 4 or 5 players. Fermín López, who always plays with intensity. Today, nowhere to be found when it came back down to tracking or pressing. And when you play with a dangerous system like ours, you have to press. When you lose the ball, you immediately have to try to recover it. But no one ever bothered to do that. No one bothered to press Atletico Madrid when they had the ball, and no one bothered to recover the ball when we lost it and Atletico Madrid would recover it. And as such, they scored 3 goals that were pretty much identical time and time again because nobody cared enough to run. Nobody cared enough to press. Nobody cared enough to recover. Nobody cared enough to do their fucking job because they got used to winning while playing at 60 and 70%, because when that shit works, all of a sudden you think it's always going to work, but it doesn't work all the time. It might work against smaller clubs. It doesn't work against bigger ones. So I truly hope and pray that these players learn their lesson, because we saw this coming, or at least I saw this coming from a mile away. And I talked about this and I warned about this in so many of my analysis videos. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Am I upset? Sure. It was a pretty embarrassing match to watch. But at the same time, I'm glad this is happening, and I'm glad it's happening now. Because I would much rather this happen now and that the players learn their lesson and maybe salvage it in the second leg of the Copa del Rey semifinal. Maybe not. But at least learn your lesson before the knockout stages of the Champions League. Because if you come out playing again in the Champions League like you played today, we can be going home in the round of 16. Not even in the quarterfinals or the semifinals. We could end up going home in the round of 16. So I truly, truly hope these players learn their lesson, because today, not only was it embarrassing and humiliating, but today cannot be repeated. The team cannot play like they did today because it was absolutely embarrassing. 4-0 is actually a good result because it could have easily been 6-0, maybe 7-0. So 4-0 is actually a good result, given how badly we played and how Atletico Madrid came out with full fury. They were playing at 120%. We were playing at 50%. You can't go about playing like that. So it's a very much needed thrashing. And I hope these players learn their lesson. Otherwise, don't ever even think about going far in the Champions League. Now, Having said that, having gotten out of the way, I do want to talk about the referee. Now, disclaimer, I want to make it very clear. The ref is not the reason we lost today. Barcelona lost today because they were absolute trash. The ref was not the reason for our loss. I want to make that very, very clear. However, we have to talk about the refereeing because the refereeing today was just as bad, if not worse, than how Barcelona performed. Let's look just at 2 calls. I don't even want to get into it with all the fouls that he missed, with all the fouls that he ruled against us, even though they weren't fouls. Abysmal performance by the ref. But let's just look at 2 calls. First of all, let's look at Cubarsi's goal that was ruled offside. Because we have this clear image. Casado makes the pass. And Lewandowski and Cubarsi are both onside when the ball is leaving Cubarsi's foot. This is clearly onside. But then what happens, because there's so many players, apparently the semi-automatic VAR or offside technology failed. And then they had to draw offside lines by hand. And lo and behold, the image that they use, Cubarsi's not in it. I'm sorry, not Cubarsi. Casado is not in it. When Casado needs to be in it, because we need to see at the moment that the ball left his foot in order to determine whether Cubarsi and Lewy were offside. But yet they don't use it. Now, you could say that maybe the ball bouncing off Lewy was a second play. But when the ball bounces off Lewy, Cubarsi's behind him. So that's a pass. That's a back pass. And there's no way that this image, look where the Atletico Madrid defender is. He's like a full 2 steps ahead of Lewy and Cubarsi. And look where he is in this frame. There's no way that this is the same frame as this one. And again, we know that the semi-automatic offside technology failed. They admitted to that. And they had to draw the offside lines by hand. But there's no way that this is the same frame as this one. And it's clear as day that Pau Cubarsi's goal should have counted. Again, we did not lose because of the referees. We lost because we were absolute trash. Now, let's look at another call. In what world is this not a red card? In what world is this not a red card? Studs out, super high up the leg. Almost broke his leg. I mean, we're lucky that Balde wasn't injured because all his weight is on that leg. But in what world is this not a red card? Someone explain that to me. Again, I'll say this again. We did not lose because of the referee. We lost because we were absolute trash. But we cannot also ignore these horrible calls because in what world is this not a red card? And here's the crazy thing. I understand maybe if the ref missed it. It happens. We're all human, right? We all miss things. But where the fuck is VAR? Millions. La Liga spent millions of euros installing the VAR system in all stadiums. 32 cameras. 32 high-definition 4K cameras that you can zoom in, zoom out, speed it up, slow it down, change angles, rotate it. And you're telling me that VAR with 32 cameras couldn't catch this? In what world is this not a red card? And in what world is this frame the same as this one? And it's not. And it's a clear red card that should have been awarded. This is a clear goal for Barca that should have been awarded. Not to mention the dozens of other mistakes that the referee made. But again, I'll say this clearly. We did not lose because of the ref. We lost because these players got used to throwing away the first halves of every match, got used to winning at 60, 70% of intensity, and today they thought that was going to fly. They thought that was going to fly against a team like Atletico de Madrid in the semifinal of a Copa del Rey. And today I hope they learned that that shit does not fly. If you want to win, if you want to advance in the Champions League, if you truly want to be feared and respected across Europe, you have to earn that. And you earn that by playing at 100% intensity, not at 60 or 70%, and definitely not by giving away the first half, acting like you're playing with your homies out on the street. But anyways, I truly hope that these players learned their lesson. Again, I believe that this was a very much needed thrashing. And I think it comes at a good time because, like I said, if you want to go far in the Champions League, things are going to have to change. And I rather that the players learn the lesson now, assuming that they will, rather than later when you're already in the knockout stages. Because in the Champions League, there's no second chances. All right, let's see. Let's see what everyone's saying, and then we will end this. John Williams says, hey, Mo, honestly, Barca don't have an excuse not to make defensive signings. The entire team was bad, but we need a defensive overhauling. We also need... Actually, I thought our defense was probably the only salvageable thing from today's match. I think Cobarci and Eddie Garcia did a phenomenal job. So I don't blame the defense today. I blame the rest of the team, but I don't know. And yes, you always say this. Barca don't have any excuse. They do. There's no money. There's no financial fair play. Yes, they have plenty of excuses not to make signings. But today, honestly, I thought Cobarci and Eric were probably the only two good players on the field. So Mike Valencia says the problem is Barca has no financial means to buy quality defenders. Again, I don't think it was the defenders today. Ahmed Khalid says, hi, Mo, you still feeling sick? Thankfully not. It looks like it was just a one-day thing. Yesterday I was sneezing all day and my nose was running. Today I'm fine, thank God. But thank you for asking, my friend. Also, I understand Pedri and Rafinha are very important, but something is not right. Drop this much quality. We'll bounce back. I hope so, my friend. I hope so. Let's see. BL3S3 says the midfield was trash, no counter-attacking, and no shooting. Biscarsa. Yeah, today our midfield was... and I think people still defend Olmo. I think people went crazy when I criticized Frankie. I was very happy with Frankie de Jong's performance in this last few matches. I thought, oh, finally we're starting to see again prime Frankie, and I'm happy that he's doing it without Pedri, because before it was always like he always needed the help of Pedri. But I also said I do want to see him against bigger clubs, because, you know, to give a masterful performance against teams like Elche and Mallorca is one thing, and against bigger clubs is another. And lo and behold, today we go against a big club, and Frankie's struggling. Olmo, Ferran, all people have been criticizing, and all people that some people in the comment section go crazy when I criticize them. Defend them now. Tell me how clueless I am about criticizing Olmo and Ferran and Frankie. Please, I'll wait. Tell me how wrong I am. Cole TJ Messi says, hey, Mo, I knew I should stop watching at the third goal, but I stuck through it. I mean, that's football, my friend. One day you're up, one day you're down. P4K Chema says, Cazador is not starting material at all. Should have kept FDJ and Olmo. And let's not forget, Juan Garcia era. Kunde had a better performance than Balde today. Well, let me clarify something about Balde, because I know I saw a lot of people kind of like going after him. And the reason why Balde was so exposed today, and I'm not defending his performance, I'm just putting that into context, is today we didn't have a left winger, right? Rafinha's injured, Rashford's injured. So it was up to Balde to act as our winger. And he was so deep in Atletico Madrid's third because he had to act as a left winger because even though we had technically almost a left winger, Olmo and Fermin were coming through the middle. So that left the entire flank for Balde. And that's why he was so exposed today. Again, this doesn't excuse the fact that Balde has been way below his level this whole season. But to compare Koundé to Balde, that's unfair because Koundé had the help of Lamine. Him and Lamine were covering the right flank. Balde was covering the whole left flank by himself. Again, I'm not defending Balde's performance, and this doesn't excuse how he's been way below his level this entire season. But you can't compare Koundé to Balde in this match because Koundé and Lamine were covering the right flank as opposed to Balde having the full flank to himself. And that's a very tough thing to do, to cover the entire field, the entire length of the field by yourself. It's a lot to ask of anyone. Solomon says, I don't really feel confident Deco as a sporting director. His decision-making are very poor. We need good players to be able to win the Champions League. And the Jeff says, Flick had it completely wrong today. Then Balde and Koundé are straight trash, garbage, not Barca level at all. Daniel says, also, we were not robbed. Let's not lean on that. No, we were not robbed. And like I said, I'm not blaming the refs. We did not lose because of the refs. Let's make that very, very clear. But we also can't ignore their horrible performance of the refs. But no, we did not lose because of them. At best, maybe would have ended 4-1 had they counted Coarsi's legal goal. But again, it doesn't excuse the 4 goals that Atletico scored against us because none of those 4 goals were as a result of bad refereeing, right? The 4 goals that Atletico scored that could have been 6 or 7 were as a result of Barca's horrible play. So no, the referee was not why we lost. The referee is not an excuse, but you still can't ignore how terrible they are. Dervan says, Mo, why are we always being embarrassed by our team at some crucial points in semifinals? For God's sake, every ball over the top was a chance for Atletico. I cannot believe I just watched this. Barca Mama says, missed the game today. Guess I will not watch the replay. No, do not bother watching the replay. Night Game says, that's why Rafinha is our best and most important player. Without him, we always lose and get destroyed. Rafinha has that X factor in him. He'd scored out of nowhere. He would have saved us dramatically. I don't know if Rafinha could have saved us today. I'm sure maybe Atletico would have scored at least one less goal. Maybe in the second goal where Olmo completely falls asleep and doesn't press. And Atletico are able to build. Maybe then Rafinha would have done that. Would have actually pressed and maybe saved us from a goal. Maybe he would have scored a goal. But I think we still would have lost because today, again, the whole team was just horrendous. When you play when you play so a semifinal so casually, like you're playing with your buddies at the park, I mean, it's gonna be very tough to win. The Jeff says, firstly, Coarsi and Eric were class. I agree. Atletico created the same chance over and over because the tactics today was flawed. It's 2 legs. Try to manage the game better. Amen, my friends. Amen, my friend. McBarca says, Champions League teams we might face are 10 times worse than Atleti. 10 times worse as in they're much more dangerous. Is that what you're referred to? Because if so, yes, you're right. Again, this is why I'm glad I'm not glad that I would have rather this not happen, but since it did, I'm glad it happened now because this team needed this lesson. Well, assuming they're going to learn from it. If they don't learn from it, then there's no point. But yes, we needed this because it was time for the team to wake up and learn that you can't play like that if you want to go far in the Champions League. If you don't want to go far in the Champions League, then please, continue playing like that. But can't go about it like that. Jose says, hey, Mo, I agree with you, but boy, was in a hard match to watch the whole way through. Telling me, man. You're telling me. Nes Dion says, as I said before, there are highlights that are pragmatic, for example, PSG, and then there's ours, which is dumb. It's all good when you outscore the minnows, but can't outscore the better teams. Today, Highline did not make sense to me because today's Highline during the first half, during the second half, it improved. The players were most of the time when the goals happened, they were in Atletico Madrid's half. It is like, you cannot set up the offside trap there because there is no offside trap, right? If the player or the opposing player takes off from his own half, it's not an offside, even if he's 10 feet behind you. But a lot of it also had to do that our front players weren't doing shit to recover the ball. So it's like our defense line would go up with the rest of the team to attack. And as soon as we lose the ball, our front players, our front three, plus Fermin and Olmo, they wouldn't try to recover the ball. So then Atletico would be able to build and get those long passes out because our front five were just nowhere to be found. They were too, they couldn't bother to try to recover the ball. So that, of course, leaves you very exposed, even if our high line was more to the back. Java the Hut says, as much as some Barca fans will blame VAR and the fake lines drawn, everybody has horrible and needed to take accountability. If Kunde keeps playing like this, he needs to go. Frankie also. I've been saying that, man. People say I'm crazy because I criticize Kunde. Sorry, not Kunde. Frankie and Olmo. People, he has goals. He scored 10 goals. Okay. Where the fuck is that getting us? People always like to throw number of goals, like if that's it. He has goals. It's over. Debate is over. Let's cancel all of our scouts. Let's cancel our sporting department. Let's just, fire the dozens of people that we have working all around the world scouting talent. And let's just look at Transfer Market, right? Transfermarket.com. Go there. Let's see who has goals. This guy has goals. Fuck it. Sign him, right? Because that's how it works. God damn. But I'm the crazy one. Calho says, my opinion, a mix of things. Lazy players, systematic highline. We need to be starter in the execution. I don't have hope this season. Hope is the last thing you lose, my friend. Cloud Music, my friend. If you keep spamming, I will block you. Please stop. Alexis says, come on, man. Frankie was not the main problem. Who said he was? Did I say he was? I don't remember saying he was. James says, FDJ is now Barca level. He always struggle against high-intensity team. We need midfielders to control the game no matter who we play. Agreed. All right, I'm officially blocking this guy. There we go. Could not be spamming in the same freaking comment over and over again. Kill Bill Matt says, Mo, you said a few days ago you are not sure if Lookman is up to this level. I didn't say that. I said Lookman did great against Real Betis and that he was causing a lot of problems. And I said, but in all fairness, it is Real Betis and they're horrible. And I said, I want to see how he does against bigger clubs. That's what I said. I didn't say I wasn't sure. So if you want to ask me about what I said, please at least get my statement right. Rodney says the ref had a material impact in the outcome of the tie. If we were to go in the second leg, losing the first leg 4-2, we would still have a decent chance to qualify. The ref screwed us over. Again, you can't blame the ref here. Yes, the ref was horrible, but the ref cannot be an excuse. He cannot be an excuse. We played like shit, and we deserve to lose. Dave says we need to sell players. Also, Flick does not have depth. Also, how can we play that high of line when our front starts aren't available? Flick must adjust due to some players' absences. And Daniel says Lewa, Balle, Kunde, Ferran, and Covarsi are not Barca level. Covarsi? Did you watch Covarsi's match today? Covarsi. Are we talking about the same guy? Or did you misspell the word and you were talking about someone else? Because Covarsi was probably one of the very few players that gets saved today. Him and Eric. But Covarsi? Costa says someone needs to shave Ferran. Long hair pressure his brain too much since he grew out the main. He's been next level trash. Yeah, man, you ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. KKPW says feeling heartbroken, but Atletico showed us our reality. Yeah, it was very much needed. Very much needed. Alexis says you can't tell me that Lewy was right sub for Casado. We needed control, not someone who can't run. Bernal or Araujo to put Eric in the midfield should have been brought on. I agree with that. I don't know what. I understand taking out Casado. That made sense to me 100% because he had a yellow card and he was causing a lot of fouls because since we had no control in the midfield, he was having to resort to those fouls to stop Atletico Madrid. So at any second, he would have gotten a second yellow and it would have been a red card. So I 100% agree with taking out Casado, but I didn't understand bringing in Lewy in his place. Something that would have made a lot more sense is, putting Eric in the midfield and maybe bringing Araujo in his place next to Cubarsí. Or if you wanted more goals because you didn't trust Ferran to turn things around, then, bring in Lewandowski in the place of Ferran, but still bring someone who can control better the midfield. I mean, Bernal, sure, but I get maybe not wanting to risk Bernal because he's still not all there. And this was a very intense match. So, bring Araujo and put in Araujo next to Cubarsí and advance Eric in the place of Casado. So, I agree. That substitution did not make sense to me at all. I agree with taking out Casado, but I didn't understand bringing in Lewy. Alexis says, Garcia and Cubarsí are amazing, but whenever they are the pair, it just doesn't seem to work. It seems to me it should be one of the other with more physical CB to pair with. It's not that. It's that you got to understand that Cubarsí is 18 years old. So he still lacks of experience. So the reason why he was so much better last season, because he had Iñigo there, right? And when you're starting out as a center back, it's always very helpful to have someone who's a veteran next to you because you can learn from them and they can, instruct you because you're still learning positioning. You're still learning what to do, when to do it. And, if you have someone there who has the experience, you'll be like, hey, go here. Hey, stand here. Hey, go there. That helps you. And then eventually you learn that on your own and you start doing it on your own without someone telling you. But at first you need someone there to tell you, kind of like how Puyol used to guide Piqué and that Piqué became one of the best center backs in the world. And right now, Cubarsí doesn't have that, right? He has Eric, who sure has more experience than him, but Eric doesn't have enough experience to where he can be teaching Cubarsí because Eric is learning himself. So that's what happens. It's not that the physicality, it's just that lack of experience. James says, we've been struggling with financial fair play for this long while we could have been good at it by getting rid of players and their wages that are not Barca level. Oh, get rid of players at their wages. I mean, it's easier said than done, right? You cannot just get rid of a player. They have to want to leave. You can't just dump them on the street or knock on a firehouse and put them in a box, put outside a firehouse, knock on a door and run away. You can't do that. And Costa says, this game was way too physical to risk Bernal. Imagine that tackle on Balde to go on Bernal. Yeah, so it makes sense he didn't bring in Bernal, but Lewy, that was for me a very strange substitution. I think he should have brought in Araujo and put him in the center back position and advance Eric to give us more control in the midfield. And Edwin says, is it just me or should the line see that the press is struggling and move back? I guess Iñigo was the leader we need. Yeah, the line should have moved at least behind the halfway line. But I feel like given how the front was not pressing at all, that line was going to get beat all the time anyway. Because if you don't press up front, you give them plenty of time to set up and get those long passes to your back. And but anyways, that's all I gotta say. Again, I think it was a very much needed thrashing, so these players can wake up and learn their lesson. I hope they do. Otherwise, don't expect Champions League. Don't expect anything important. Maybe La Liga. But these players need to learn their lesson. I hope they learn their lesson. As far as do I believe we have a shot in the second leg? Maybe. But it's got to be incredibly tough. Because Atletico are up 4-0. So you know what they're going to do at the Camp Nou. they're just going to park the bus. So it's very slim chance, but of course, it's not over until it's over. I think if the team learns its lesson, I think if Flick learns from this defeat, I think we could maybe revert the situation in a second leg, but it's going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. But again, the more important thing here is for the team to learn its lesson, because if you want to go far in the Champions League or win the Champions League, this could happen again. Anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, peace, guys.